At the beginning of the season, the Clippers seemed ready to dominate, having made some massive splashes in the offseason that made them primed for success. In the 2019 season, the team was written off by many after unloading some of their key players at the trade deadline, but they rallied hard and snuck into the playoffs as an 8 seed and continued on to give the Warriors a very hard-fought battle in the first round before getting eliminated. They seemed like a promising group of talent that works hard and plays well together. So Kawhi Leonard found the location very promising, and along with him, the Clippers went out and traded for Paul George, adding 2 bona fide star players, one of which being the reigning Finals MVP at the time, to a hungry team seemingly ready to take a step forward. Players like Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell established themselves as elite bench players. The team went out and traded for Marcus Morris during the season to add another scoring option to the rotation. Patrick Beverley provides solid perimeter defense, and all in all, the team was stacked with talent, at least on paper they were. As we saw in the playoffs though, talent alone is not enough to win it all, and because of a combination of chemistry issues, individual meltdowns, and lack of leadership, they crumbled out of the playoffs in the second round and choked away a 3-1 lead in the process. Needless to say, the Clippers are in a lot of trouble now, and for the topic of today's video, we're going to be discussing all of the rumors of what went wrong behind the scenes, what led to this point, and what they need to fix if they want to stay competitive not only next year, but for a while. Before we start though, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. As I mentioned at the start of the video, the Clippers heavily invested in this team, so the pressure is absolutely on to make it work. Going back and looking at the details of the trade that brought Paul George to the team, it looks horrendous. The Oklahoma City Thunder gave the Clippers Paul George, and in return, the Clippers gave them Danilo Gallinari, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and 5 first-round picks. 5! Sure, George was and still is a star player, but looking back, that might be one of the most lopsided deals in NBA history, especially with the hindsight we have now on the situation. It could even be argued that the Clippers would have been much better off keeping SGA and Gallinari along with all of those picks, because both of those 2 players are incredibly productive and probably would have helped solve a lot of the team's problems this season. Danilo Gallinari throughout the entirety of his career has been an efficient, reliable secondary scoring option that can easily put up 20 points on a nightly basis, and most importantly, he doesn't dominate the ball to do so. He's comfortable working off the ball, produces the majority of his points within the flow of the offense without trying to do too much, and he knows his role, which is not a description that fits Paul George. One of the main issues for the Clippers this year is that they had too many guys that wanted the ball in their hands and not enough players buying into lesser roles, and chemistry-wise, Gallinari would have helped there. Then with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he's one of the most promising young playmakers at the point guard position in the whole league, having taken a huge leap forward this year and showing off a very versatile skill set that balances being an aggressive scorer and playmaker for others very well. You could attribute that to learning under Chris Paul this year, who has been a fantastic mentor for him this season and definitely has helped him grow. But if he was still on the Clippers, he would have provided some much needed playmaking on a team that lacks a true playmaker. Guys like Kawhi Leonard, PG, and Lou Williams are very good shot creators, but the team doesn't have a great passer that makes life easier for the scorers, and SGA could have been that as well. Not to mention how valuable 5 first-round picks could have been for them. Ultimately, I guess the point of this rant is that the Clippers dug themselves into a deep hole when they traded for Paul George, and now the only solution seems to be shipping him out. This brings me to my next point in the discussion, being how George seems to be at the center of a lot of the chemistry issues, and many different reports coming out of the Clippers locker room back this up. After the miserable Game 7 that clinched their elimination, according to reporter Shams Charania of The Athletic, George attempted to rally the team with a speech. In the speech, he reportedly said, "We can only get better the longer we stay together and the more we're around each other. I think that's really the tale of the tape this season. We just didn't have enough time together." However, as his teammates listened to him speak, many couldn't help but be annoyed by it, and the speech was met with eye rolls and bewilderment, as if they couldn't believe he was really trying to do this. George is the one who only scored 10 points in Game 7 while shooting brick after brick in the fourth quarter, so they quite simply didn't want to hear it from him. And unfortunately, their only answer might be to move on from him and try to get any form of value in return for him, which brings me to the next point of discussion being what they can do about it. George's value undoubtedly took a hit this season, but it's by no means tanked, as he is still a star caliber player and a two-way player no matter how poor his showing in the playoffs were. With this said, funnily enough, the first trade idea I'm proposing is to send George back to his former Oklahoma City Thunder team in exchange for Chris Paul. Yes, the Clippers will need to swallow their pride and accept a loss in returns for him, but ultimately I think Chris Paul provides exactly what they need if they want to actually contend next season. As I said before, the Clippers really lacked a true playmaker, especially at the point guard position, and Chris Paul is still very much a top-tier guy in that regard, having just been named second-team All-NBA. He would help their offense run much smoother, he would make life easier for the scorers around him, and set them up for easier looks as opposed to the constant ISO ball the team relied upon throughout the year, and defensively, he still brings it. Kawhi Leonard only has one more year left on his contract before he has the ability to opt out, so the Clippers pretty much need a solution to this mess ASAP, and Chris Paul getting reunited with his former team might be one of the best options. Other teams will obviously be interested as well, and the Clippers will have to weigh all of their options, because again, they need a solution to this mess as soon as possible. If they can't convince Kawhi to stay past next season, then they're going to head into a rebuilding phase without any significant assets in the near future because of all the draft picks they traded away. Another area they could look for outside of the point guard spot is big men positions, because both Montrezl Harrell and Marcus Morris are free agents this summer, and if they walk, then they have yet another hole in the rotation here, so George could be used to bring someone in to man the paint. Players like Blake Griffin on the Pistons and Rudy Gobert on the Jazz come to mind, but obviously the details would be difficult to iron out in a speculative piece like this. All in all, the Clippers are in panic mode a bit, but all hope is definitely not lost. They absolutely have the capability to bounce back next year, but changes will have to be made. As we get further into the offseason, this development will be intriguing to follow, and I'll be sure to keep you guys updated. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think the Clippers should do with Paul George and in this whole situation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.